Hi, it's Juliet, and this video is about the process of remaking my first game ever. I mean the first step of the process, because making a game is quite a long task. So this was Duper, the first game I have ever made. As you can see, it's far from being perfect, and as any good first game, it's unfinished. There is so many flaws with it, which I will go over as I redo every part, but first, the core concept of the game is that you can disguise as your enemy to fool them into not attacking you, and doing so, you gain their capacity. I made it in about 4 months in 2019, and this is where I fell in love with developing video games, which is now one of my main passions. In Duper, there is 3 levels, so I feel like I can remake it in a year or maybe 2, I don't know, because at the moment I'm having way too much fun adding new ideas into it. But there's definitely no deadline and it's not important, it's just gonna be a little video game that I'm developing for fun. The first thing to remake is the core concept. Yes, starting strong. The problem with it is that the character has nothing to do after getting the disguise in the original game, because now enemies don't attack you, and in the original game you can pretty much walk to the ending. There's nothing. I know at the time I made it, back in 2019, it didn't bother me at all because everything was interesting to me. Like the sole fact of moving the character on the screen was so much fun. And I guess I thought that the player would have a lot of fun doing that too. But yeah, definitely now I'm thinking that I should add a bit to it. My idea is to have platforming mechanics like you can find in a lot of classical platformer, like trampolines, a wall you can jump off of, moving environment, etc. Just make it my own. Undeniably nothing groundbreaking, but there's a lot to do when you introduce mechanics like as a general idea. Second of all, there will be a high score based on time and collectible because I'm gonna add collectibles to the game. My idea is that there's gonna be many collectibles throughout the level, which are food. And every, let's say, 10 seconds, the character eats one of them. So the more you collect and the faster you go, the higher your score is at the end. And the last thing I'm gonna add to the core concept is that the capacity gained from the enemy are gonna change the movement system of the character, not making it better or worse, just new. The character would be able to traverse the levels with any of the capacity, or none and just be the basic character. It would just be the player choice. Once I had this new general direction, which didn't change much, it's just, hey, let's make a complete game instead of just one idea. Just the disguise was the idea of the original game. The idea now is to make a game that is correct, basically. And I was super eager to start making the game. So I started with the main character. In Duper, the main character is Red Little Hood for some reason, so we are keeping that. But I vividly remember a big struggle with her, which was that animating human with some kind of realistic proportion is so hard for a video game. It looks super weird because then we are wondering how can a normal human jump so high? But if you give it a realistic jump height, then it's like the worst platformer ever because a human doesn't jump that high at all. So I started redrawing her with this in mind, making her way smaller. I really tried to cartoonize her so she would be easier to animate. Then I put her into a blank canvas of a game and I spent a couple days animating her. And then I realized that I made the same exact mistake again. I guess I gave her realistic-ish proportion of a child. Just instead of drawing an adult, I drew a child, but it still looked human. The same problem was occurring. She was super hard to animate, but I was ready to push through that and animate her anyway. When I playtested her, however, I realized that beyond that problem, my main character was so unfun to play. Because she was a thin, long, vertical rectangle, so you barely jump and you are already high in the sky, which makes it so hard to control in a way. The most enjoyable characters, in my opinion, in games are small, like more round than thin rectangles. So sadly, because I really liked her, I redrew her from scratch, this time keeping in mind a round shape. I'm happy I didn't lose too much of her in the redesign, like her face is very similar, which is cool because I was fond of her before. Importing that new version in the game felt immediately better to control, so I sticked with her. I gave her a bunch of animation and basic movements. For now, I didn't add the cape, so I could focus on her movements more easily and animate those. I also added the player-friendly features like coyote jump, buffer jump, ledge grab, all of that. If you don't know, coyote jump is the fact to be in the void and still be able to jump if you were on a platform like a second ago and you just got into the void. The buffer jump is the fact to press space before you touch the floor, but you're gonna touch it in a second. So I remember that and then I make you jump anyway. It just feels less buggy. Ledge grab is very self-explanatory. You're just in the void and you don't fall because you were almost gonna get to the platform but you missed it by a bit, so I just make her climb on the platform anyway. For the enemies, in the original game you're collecting these guys from a cherry, which makes no sense whatsoever, and the cherry is pixelized and the game is not. I don't know why. It's very weird. So I decided to drop that to collect the disguise from the enemy themselves. The character just jump on the enemy and then carry them in one way or another. I'm gonna adapt for each enemy and get the disguise like that. I decided that the slime movement modification would be to make her faster and a bit harder to control, playing with momentum a lot. In the original Duper, I made Red Little Hood carry the slime, and I remember being super proud of that animation and really liking the concept. I still agree with that, so I'm gonna keep it. So I started with the slime, and originally what I did is split him in a lot of parts and then animating everything by hand. And it did work, but first of all, the animation, I needed to make quite some for it to not look super repetitive, because if he's deforming in the exact same way every time, it doesn't really look good. It was just not quite what I was expecting. So I went on the internet, I was like, okay, how to make a slime, and the internet answered soft bodies. And I was like, oh, that seems like such a great idea, it's gonna solve all of my little problems. And it didn't, because I spent like, I think a day, 10 hours trying to figure out how that works. And it just didn't. At the end of the day, I had the soft body and it was some kind of working. But then I understood that soft bodies are just not what I need because they deform where they receive an impact. And that's absolutely not what I want. I would just want him to deform as he moves. So then I spent a lot of time coding animation, like coding little impact on him so he would move like tuk 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 when he walks, when he moves. That just was so bad. It was really hard to get it to look correct because the impact needed to be stiff enough that it makes him move, but I didn't want little part of him just moving like one side or the other so he would move. So it was very hard. Then I succeeded to get to some point that I was like, okay, nice enough, like it works. And I realized it's just bad. It's just not what I want. Like, this is the best I can do and it's ugly. Also, I had problems with the fact that the soft body concept use rigid body and their reaction, the natural reaction with the physics of Unity 2D. But I need to use the rigid body to make him move like right and left and right and left. So that just was a bad solution. It's working for other game, like it's not bad for slime in general, but it's just for me it wasn't working at all. And then I discovered the beautiful world of shaders, which was so cool because that worked wonderfully. I spent quite some time understanding like how to make a shader, what it is and stuff like that. But once I did, well, it just unlocked. It's exactly what I needed because I need to have the control on the rigid body, and with the shader I do, and I need him to move constantly in a random way. So the shaders was the perfect choice. I came around it quite a long time after I should have, but now the slime was animated. So I had a main character and a slime, and both of them were looking okay. So I decided to add particles to make the world seem a bit more lively. I drew several animations for smoke particles, all for Red Little Hood. So one for when she walks, one when she double jump, because I felt like the double jump wasn't really clear, like I didn't know when it happened. One for when she lands, and a bigger one for when she falls from a higher place. I also drew animation for a drip to add them to the slime when she carries it. So the slime would drip into a puddle, and the puddle would be the explanation on why she can be faster but a bit harder to control, because she's walking in all that slime goo. I made sure to not give the puddle to the slime that are just moving in the environment, because otherwise she would be expected to move faster when she walks into those puddles, and that's not what I wanted. For the puddle, it looked very weird originally because I had drawn an entire puddle, and when she was going over edges, the puddle was kind of hanging in the air, which was it looked very weird. So I decided to divide the puddle into multiple particles of a puddle, and each of them are animated differently, and I drew differently so they would look all correct. I grouped them, and I make each disappear if they don't detect the ground underneath them. Now it looks way more correct because when she goes near edges, basically the puddle shrinks, and when she leaves back up on the floor or something, the puddles came back to its original size. I was quite proud of thinking of that little solution. It made me happy that I could figure it out. I quickly set up lighting system because I knew I was gonna add light into the game. Once it worked, I removed it for now because, well, I can't really add it without the art and anything because I wouldn't know where the light source would be. But it's good that it's working and it's set up at least. In this new version of Duper, I knew that the collision of the platform wouldn't be exactly at the edge of the platform because I wanted to be free to draw bumpy terrain or deformed little terrain or stuff like that. And also, I wanted to draw everything from a view that is just slightly above what you're looking at. Still very much view from the side, but you would see the floor when she walks. However, I obviously want her to walk on straight lines so it's more comfortable to control. So I knew that I was going to have a problem because it's very frustrating to never know where you're gonna land perfectly and if you can jump there or not, because my platforms are not going to be necessarily all grass or rocks. Also, a platformer is way better if you're able to easily anticipate where you're going to be stopped by the floor, like exactly where. So I spent some time making a big shader that would draw outlines for the colliders. Now it's way more comfortable to control. Obviously, it takes away a bit from, the look. Like right now, it's obviously super ugly because there's no art on top of that. But I feel like I can adapt that when I have the art and make it look like it's light, so it would look less worse than this, hopefully. But still, I don't want to just prioritize to look to the point that the platformer is not fun to play. So for me, it's important to know where you're gonna land, so I'm gonna use it. To address the same problem, I also added rain effect with collision on the collider of the platform to accentuate where the collider is and where she's gonna walk. I also really like rain in video games. I like the look of it. Lastly, for this video, I worked on Red Little Hood's cape, which was a struggle. I spent many hours trying to have a cool looking cape. I tried to follow this tutorial for a soft body solution, and it so wouldn't work at all. It was so frustrating because when you scroll down in the comments, it's like, yeah, awesome, worked great, thank you. And I'm like, how did you make it? I spent 4 hours on this tutorial. It's a 5-minute video, and the video is clear and stuff. It's not the problem of the video, it's just me. I still don't know what I missed, and I ended up having to drop that solution. Then I tried to follow the second only tutorial I could find on 2D class, and it was a bit better, but still really not okay. It was very, very buggy. It looked so bad, and sometimes it would just take the whole screen, move around super fast or stuff like that. It just wouldn't work. And then I tried to accept that I would just animate the cloth by hand on Unity. I started doing that, and then I very quickly realized that was going to be super hard and the result would just look so stiff. So I abandoned and I accepted that she would just never have a cape. For 1 minute. I walked in my room, I was just like, yeah, okay, fine, she's just not gonna have a cape. And then I came back to the computer, just try one last thing because I had a bit of an idea. And this time it was only me and the computer, no tutorial. And I figured it out. Finally, I was so happy when I figured it out. I was so glad. The problem was definitely that my situation is particular to my game, and the tutorials would just not work because it's not exactly the same sprite size, movement system, everything. Definitely knocking my head against 2D joints for a couple of days with first the slime and then the cloth was a good thing, because now I understood them enough to make something that worked for my specific situation. I discovered one last bug with hinge joint. There were so many. When I was googling stuff, sometimes it would just say, yeah, that's just how it works. That's just a bug. You have to work around it because there's no way you can fix it, like it's just a bug. The last bug that stopped me, in a sense, was that hinge joint just don't flip. The sprite can flip, but the angles of the joints and their connection between each other, they stay the same, which is just a bug of Unity. So to work around that, I just made two different cape, one for left and one for right, restarting from scratch with the joint, because I didn't know how to fix that and I didn't want to try. I was so tired, I just wanted a working cape, and I had the working cape on one side, so it's just like, hey, I know how to make a cape that works in one direction. I can just flip that. I mean, not flip it with the code, obviously that doesn't work, but just make another one. And for now, it works great. That was a, a great solution. It works, so it's good enough. Red Dealer Hood and the enemy are quite done now. Obviously, they're not finished, and I'm gonna add to them throughout the whole process. But it's a good enough base. So next, I want to start working on concept art and making game asset for the environment. Bye!